Cost of governance in the country, more so now that the 22 budget proposal is out, and with a attendant breakdown, well, 1 billion naira going for sustenance of food alone, raising a lot of dust, or let alone the recurrent expenditure, not a kettle of fish entirely. But we're joined now by Mr. Emmanuel Umoren, a legal practitioner and an analyst. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you very much.
Well, it's interesting what we're seeing now, but you also have those who have looked at it from the perspective of law. They think, well, the kind of system we run is such that, you talk about this, not just the quota system now, including regions or geopolitical zones in doing your things, because I was even saying, we need to have ministers of states. And now, almost every point in time, you find something being created, they say, so to speak, to cater for different regions, and it all adds up. Can we ever get out of this?
Well, to start with, I think laws are made for men, not men for laws. The law does not require that each state should have. Okay, if you say you want to you want to have every state as representing, having a representative of a ministerial representative in the executive council. Why do you have some states having 2 or more? That's one. But the fact is that what beats me is that it's the first time you will have a PhD holder as head of state, another professional as president, and another professional as vice president. I don't know. And then you remember the story of the boy from the creeks who went to school barefooted and became president. Has he lost that where he came from? How does he expect Nigerians to hear that 2 households are spending 1 billion naira for feeding? We're not talking of cost of running generators. Now we are saying the country is going to go broke because if we don't remove fuel subsidy. Now, what of the cost of governance that we've been running for this period? Nigeria, the money Nigeria earned between 1999 and 2007, Nigeria, from the time of amalgamation till 1999, Nigeria had not earned that kind of money. What has happened to this huge sum of money earned by Nigeria? The population, yes, has increased, but you see that there is so much wastage. People come out of government and are much richer than they were going in. We are all growing up with people around. How many state governors spend 1 month in their states and don't fly out of the country or don't fly to Abuja? Like my colleague was saying the other time, the government is so expensive to run that the country governance is killing the country. The cost of turnaround maintenance of the refineries from Abacha's time till today would have built for each refinery would have built about 3 or 4. The amount of money that has been spent from 1999 till date in fixing Lagos Benin Shagamu Road or Lagos Ibadan and Benin Expressway would have built 2 more or 3 more.
But are we missing anything now if we ignore, let me use the term, turnaround maintenance of governance in this country? Because talk about politicking, the way they emerge. Because one way or the other, they say they've got to get back to their base, perhaps pay them their due for letting them come on board. So is that also a factor? Can it be in this whole equation?
You see, if you remember, Chamberlain, about 5 years ago, I was on this studio when you were at the other end, and I said something about Governor Fashola, that he was a senior advocate going into governance. That if he concludes 2 terms and runs Lagos State properly, he is going to earn far much more than he was earning before he became governor. So he does not need to steal. The United Nations will be asking him, how did you run a big metropolitan town, state like Lagos. How? They want to learn from him. Like my colleague was saying, Clinton earned much more after leaving office. General Powell, he left the army as any other general, but the first book he wrote ending $5 million. So what are we learning from? The only part that we learn from is how the Americans live. How we want to go and buy houses in America. How we want to go to the buy clothes in America. Bring American things here. How can we run a country in this form? We steal our country blind. We do not think of our children. We think of what we think. Okay, if I steal, my children will be able to live, to build higher, drive bulletproof cars and all those. But you forget that one day your son may step out of that bulletproof car and somebody can gun him down.
Well, speaking of which, we even have people tweeting now saying that, listen, it looks as if society is part of the problem, because we seem to celebrate those who, for some reason, have just made it without asking, okay, let's see, what's the background? How did you come about all of this? We turn or look the other way. I say, why?
Yes. You see, even though when General Buhari and Idi Agbon came to power, and they brought the law, the directive that armed robbers that were caught will be taken to their communities to be shot. Even though the human rights advocates came against that at that time, but you see, it brought a bit of shame. It brought a bit of shame to the community, to the people. So you warn your people. However, a little story a friend told me that when he was in the university, he had a friend who his father warned should not, because the guy was a thief. He wanted it should not be his friend. That 15 years after, that friend came to marry his sister because he had made it. The father warned him, but the values had changed. 15 years after, that friend came to marry his sister. And when he asked his father, how come you're allowing this man? He said, the man has bought me a car. You see, these are the things, the problems we have. We do not have respect. One day I was in an aircraft with a professor, and I told the air hostess, please, that man is a professor. He said, well, so what was the professor? You see, that is what we have turned into. We don't respect anything that you work for. You see, look at the papers, the Minister of Petroleum Resources, most papers have the newspaper is filled with her pictures. How much is the budget of, how much does she spend compared to Mrs. Clinton? So if, with the amount of money Mrs. Clinton spends as Secretary of State, which is more than the budget of Africa, when you're going to New York, you should find every street of New York with a poster saying, well, thank you, Mrs. Clinton, with your birthday, is this, is that. You see, we are trivializing governance. How many adverts, when does President Obama not celebrate his birthday? How many adverts used in American papers? If it's Nigeria, if Nigeria had CNN, we'll be putting the advert of our president birthday and the birthday of the first lady on CNN.
Well, good enough for you're a lawyer, and when they talk about all of these laws, we talk sometimes that these laws should be amended. But again, let's talk about the number of aides, the retinue of aides with which we run our government, and they tell you it is backed by law. First, we'll look at the ministers, the ministerial positions, and the way it is going. And now people are already clamoring for states creation. So are we saying, for instance, we wake up and we have 46 states? We're having 46 ministers and 46 minister of states?
My brother, you see, we do not think in this country. We do not, with respect, we do not. If you sit down and think about this country and think about the way people in government run the country, you want to cry. Today, when the Minister of Agriculture was giving his speech, I was wondering what was the policeman standing behind him doing? In the midst of what was the representation of the policeman standing behind him? What was the reason for that? That policeman was wasting his time there. And that is where you see policemen carrying, as you appoint 46 ministers, you see policemen carrying basket in the market. You go to Okari market, You see them when you're driving past. You see them policemen carrying baskets and women are buying things. But in uniform, do you know how can you have enough policemen policing the country when you see men, wives of local government chairmen carrying policemen following them and 3 or 4 or 5 policemen. You go to some states in the south where there are kidnappings, you will see army and policemen following wives to the saloon. How do you run a country like? And you see, let us get one thing right. Most of these Boko Haram, these kidnappers, they were agents of these politicians, in all honesty. They were used by them. They have abandoned them. Now these politicians are loading budgets for themselves because they want to spend Christmas. They want to enjoy Christmas. Don't you think these boys know what they are doing? That's why they are kidnapping more.